Hello, my name is Ezra, and my advisor is Ezri Tarazi. I would like to start with a small game. If I could ask everyone to stand up. After lunch, we need to be a little bit more active. And I think my voice isn't. Okay, so you have to imitate the motions that I do, but exactly the opposite. Okay, and one of the winners, the one that I decide, will get this poorly 3D printed design tech winner. Okay, so for example, if I raise my hands up, everyone, no, opposite, hands are down. Okay, if you fail, please sit and no cheating. Okay, so everyone will put their hands up to sit down. Okay. The opposite. Okay, the opposite of what I'm doing. If I put my hands up, your hands are down. Okay. The opposite. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Actually, it becomes a medal. No, I'm here. Okay, so how I started this. Actually, the point of this is that I wanted to show you that games and fun can make you move and do exercise without even you realizing it. Okay, so this is my dad. While some cooking was going on in my house, an oil fire started. And when my dad tried to extinguish that fire, his hand caught the fire and lit up. He got some nasty burns, so we rushed him to the hospital, and he was hospitalized for about 3 months. While in the hospital, he started the process of physical therapy. The therapy that my dad got was transferring marbles between 2 bowls, as you can see in this recreation. I would like to ask you, how long can a person maintain this kind of activity? 10 minutes, an hour? How about doing it every day until you get better? It seems impossible to me, especially this day and age when everything is so fast. That got me to look into games and technology that will make you move while you play, and how can I make games that seamlessly integrate with the patient therapy process. Virtual reality is perfect for this purpose because it immerses a person in a new environment, making him interact with this new environment in many ways that are impossible in the real world. The technology is still new in terms of cost, in terms of usability. That is, it needs a tethered connection to a PC and a power cord. However, large companies are making this technology much better, and today we can get a device that works independently with no wires at the cost of $400. And for the experiment, we're still using the Vive Pro, but looking forward to the future. After deciding I'm moving forward with virtual reality, I consulted physical therapists on relevant variety of motion types that VR could have the most impact on. They pointed me to look into the rehabilitation process of orthopedic injuries. This range of motions you can see here can be recreated with the 3 elements of the VR system, the headset and 2 motion controllers. And specifically, I looked into physical therapy exercises at the home when a patient is responsible for his own therapy and needs to maintain a daily exercise regime by himself, as you can see in this video with no extra props. And if you focus on relevant conditions, I needed to narrow down these conditions and the target audience so I could start making games. For the purpose of the experiment to come, I wanted to get people that are technology-oriented so I can eliminate adapting issues and focus on orthopedic conditions like spine vulnerability, scoliosis, kyphosis, and more. I started testing ready-made games for different genres to try and see the range of motion possible in VR. As you can see, it can range from free to very precise and calculated motion. Everything is driven by a game goals in the virtual world that creates movement in the real world. I narrowed the gamification elements that I believe are the most important for the making of a good VR game and will hook most people to play at home. A clear set of rules and a clear goal for winning is imperative for any game. Positive and negative feedback can help a player get the skill for the game faster and to maintain progress and skill points, circularity of levels, and achievements is used to make the game sticky and more addictive. Luck and chance makes games less predictable and challenging and last longer. And finally, using pleasing aesthetics is important to reach a large audience. After each game had been made, I tried to evaluate in a scale that relates to both physical therapy and gamification. With these evaluation skills, I could tweak the gameplay and mechanics to create the best version of that game. The scales are arranged and not constant because each game has possibilities and features that can vary between the levels. So the first game that I made was, what else? A game for my father. It's a game where you pick up fruits and place them in a basket, but in a zero-gravity Zen garden. I used an add-on technology called Leap Motion for the hand tracking. And if we look at the game stats and the gamification score, we can see that it was more of an experience than a game. We had precision movement, but low variety. It was very intuitive, but had no real objective or progression. Okay. The second game that I made was Butterfly Arcade. The goal was to catch all the butterflies and avoid the bats. This game made me realize that these kind of games have to be personally tailored to each patient according to his abilities. So the butterflies were distributed by an algorithm in a calculated manner that creates motion specifically for each player's abilities. The third game that I made was a puzzle game. The objective of the game was to get the puck out of the puzzle. Each level is made from a progressive difficulty motion pattern that is selected from a library of lines that creates specific movement desired for each player. This game utilizes precise wrist and arm motion and can cover the front field of motion of the player. This is the fourth and the selected game for the experiment we plan to make. The game is made with the narrative of a child's room who gets a new toy. The objective is to save the good guys from the untimely death and let the bad guys die. A lot of work goes into making a game, and the process from the concept art to asset creation and music even, to a final game is long and requires bodies of knowledge from a lot of different schools. Coding, drawing, 3D modeling, game design, to name a few. Of course, I had some help. And in this specific game, you start each round with 8 lives, and you lose a life after you fail to save a good guy or save a bad guy by mistake. The sooner you catch a good guy, the more points it's worth. By balancing spawn rates and speeds of the characters for each of these 4 rooms, I can create different patterns of movements. And by customizing these 3 elements of the game, it is possible to create an array of motion. The size of the house, the location and size of the shoebox where you put the good guys, the location and size of the bin where you put the bad guys, can create different pattern movements for each player. These parameters can change the way a player interacts with the game, from free and aerobic movement that is more suited for advanced player to calculated motion that is more suited for beginners. After making the game, we wanted to ask a specific question. How can we prolong at-home physical therapy sessions with the gamification elements? We chose to focus on the issue of difficulty and make 2 versions of the same game. In the first version, the player determines his own level as he sees fit, and he can change it throughout the game as the game progresses. And in the second version of the game, the level of difficulty is determined for the player before the game and is based on a questionnaire filled out by the player before the game starts. Both groups fill the same questionnaire, only one group actually gets the results from it. Each match collects data from the game, divided into 2 kinds of data. Visible data that is forwarded to the player and at the end of each match. This data is meant to encourage and get the player to get better for the next match. And the invisible data, the data that the player is not aware of. We gather a lot of information from each session, data like hand score and motion, to all character success rates, averages, and more. This data will be used to analyze the player's performance as an individual and as a part of a group. We hope that after this experiment, we can try and find patterns and trends using gamification elements that will help determine ways of creating therapy games that will keep the players longer in the game and healthier for that matter, without them even realizing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ezra.